I mean, we've been
Hi,
catching up for
beautiful.
an hour now, but I'm so glad to share you with the people listening. So you're probably new to a lot of my community, and I'm just so so blessed, and so honored to have you here to share you because you're a
I
gift.
am so honored to be here with you, as always.
Yeah.
Basically, as always.
Aw.
I will always say yes to time with you.
Oh, and
It
we've
brings
had
me
such
joy,
incredible.
girl.
Yes. Yes, and you bring me joy, and so that's why you're here, and I truly believe what you're doing in the world is a potent and powerful pathway to joy.
Thank you. As do I. But I have to share with you what just came up for me. And I cannot believe I didn't
Great.
think of this when you even first started talking about this. Oh my gosh. So, as you know, you and I co led a retreat in
Yes.
January 2020 before COVID took everything away from
Shut
us.
down.
And we would go get coffee every morning from Red, what's it called?
Red Bird, the Red
Red
Bird.
Bird. And I always get an Americano with half and half in it. And they called adding the half and half adding joy. Do you remember
Yes.
that? And I remember and they would write Americano plus joy or something on the cup. And I just love that so much.
Yeah.
And that just came to me in this moment because I remember you and I feeling that was so wonderful. Just naming it joy actually had an impact that had us feeling joyful.
Yeah. Yes. And I think too, what was so joyful, first of all, that they called it that,
Yeah.
that you woke up and it was even like the way they even it's red and the little sign that says joy and then adding
Yes.
it and then the just the whole experience of being there
Hmm.
together and
Hmm.
doing this each morning every bit of it was
Yep.
extra enjoy.
Extra. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yay, I'm
anyway,
excited for
that
that.
just like flooded in. And it's funny that I hadn't even thought of that up until this moment, but it's so cool.
Yeah, so thinking of that, it's a great way to just get into like what joy means.
Yeah.
So when you think of
Yes.
that even, like what does it mean to you? What is joy?
Yeah. And I've been sitting with that question. Again, I love this series that you're doing. I just think it's a really powerful and potent question. So thank you. And the answer, when I drop in and ask myself that question, what is joy? The answer I am continuing to get is it is contentment.
Mm,
And it feels like, and the other kind of words that come up for me is like a bubbling of contentment. Like it feels like this bubbling up of like, I am content. And I was thinking about that word content and joy and how why it's different from happiness, which I don't think it is happiness.
mm,
And the other interview you did with that amazing woman whose name I'm forgetting, I'm sorry, how
Julie.
she said, yeah, um, happiness comes from things, I think is what she said. I,
Circumstances.
circumstances. So it's fleeting and it's also unpredictable. But then there's this piece as well of the cultural messaging we get that's so powerful, that's all about we're supposed to be happy. We're supposed to feel happy all the time. And if I don't feel happy all the time, then something's wrong with me. And that's such a damaging message.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really sorry. My dog is scratching at the door and she's not going to stop until I open it. So,
She's welcome here.
thanks. Sorry about that. So, yeah. So contentment and joy, that joy or contentment, I get to feel it's very peaceful and I can feel it in any moment, regardless of my circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't have to feel it. I'm allowed to feel sad, mad, bad, right? I am allowed the full spectrum of emotions as a human being. And I think that's really important.
Well, I think that's important to say, even connecting that to contentment is, I think
Mhm.
feeling all of the emotions is where we can land in contentment. If we're not feeling
Yes.
our emotions and feeling the shitty and the crappy and the hard and the painful, we
Yes.
can't ever really get to joy or feel
Mm-mm.
content because there's all this
Mm-mm.
stuff we haven't
Mm-hmm.
processed or worked
No,
through.
because then we're just like in a constant internal struggle at that point of like pushing those feelings aside and making those feelings wrong. But then those feelings are still there and they're like, knock, knock, knock. Yeah. So how can we
It,
ever feel joy in that moment? It's just like crazy making.
yeah, and it doesn't feel, it's not real. It's not real to
And
me.
it's not real. Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
there's
Yeah.
something about joy to me that is based in what is real.
Yes. The other word, and this I feel connects with what is real, the other word that comes to me is just being present to what is
Absolutely.
allows joy. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. Like you're not trying to change anything.
mm-mm.
There's things that you want to change,
Mhm,
but in the moment, you
mhm,
release that and you're just present.
mhm,
And in
mhm, just
that
present.
moment, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's what you just said. You're not trying to change things. It's okay if you do wanna change things, like, and all of us, I am gonna assume people watching what you're creating are committed to their growth.
Mhm.
So growth means, right, we're gonna transform, part of us is anyway, and that there's an evolution, but the important fact is that we aren't, even now, even as I want to grow and evolve as a person, it doesn't mean that who I am now isn't whole, complete, and perfect. It is. I'm not broken.
Right.
And like from a place of love, I get to say, and this is like something exciting that I want to grow into. Um, so I just wanted to acknowledge, and you and I were talking about this prior to pushing record, that um, importance of being able to experience all the things. And I'm trying to think of the words you used actually, but I can't come up with them. But yeah, just how, and so in my work, which I do a lot of work around the patriarchy and the internalized paradigms of the patriarchy within ourselves. And like one of the biggest tools of the patriarchy, I will say, is binaryism.
Mm,
Things are either yes or no,
absolutely.
black or white, good or bad, and that there's no room for nuance. Oh, I know what you were saying, that like both can be true in us. What a
Yeah.
radical concept, that like I can feel both sad and content
Yeah. We can
at the
hold both.
same time.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah. And that
amazing.
word capable capacity that you brought up in our conversation was, wow, we can hold both and we should and we could and we will and we can. We've
Hmm.
been told no, you're sad or you're happy or you're, like you
Yep.
said, like, and you need to be
Yep.
happy all the time. So don't be sad
And you need to be happy all the time, especially as a woman.
and smile, right? Smile while you're doing it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember it just brought up something when I even said that. I remember as a teenager, I had this way of being that I would just kind of like hide in plain sight, like
Hmm.
where I would just kind of like almost as if I was creating an energetic mask where you couldn't read me.
Yeah.
And I was tired of smiling all the time. So I
Yeah.
would just kind of, I don't even know what this is called, but I remember doing it. And I remember in choir one day, and my teacher said, I never know what you're thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, because I'm tired, and it wasn't him and it wasn't anything he did wrong. It's just this way of being that we're taught as young girls that we need to be happy and perfect and
Hmm.
pleasing. And
Mm.
so we have to create ways of resting from that.
Oh my gosh, it is exhausting.
Yeah.
It is so exhausting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I was thinking,
Mm.
even when you were sharing, sorry, go back to the serving joy at the Redbird.
Mhm.
There's something about an energy you're accessing too. Because, I'm picturing us even walking up, we're busy, we're leading a retreat, we've got our stuff together, we're like, okay, let's do this. Like we have things to do, right?
Yep.
When we pause and we stop at this cute little place with beautiful people and they say, here,
Yeah.
have some joy. And all of a sudden, it's as if we've opened up an opening inside of us
Mhm.
and access this other energy.
Mhm.
It's not up
Like a
here,
portal.
it's
Mhm.
a portal, right? And we get out of
Mhm.
our head, and all of a sudden we've tapped back into that place in us that holds that bubbling up
That bubbling up.
energy.
And I think that's such a beautiful example where my mind goes hearing that is, so often in this world today, we can feel unempowered around creating change or making a difference. I just think that that's something that on some level, at some point in the day, all of us can feel, maybe chronically, I don't know. But that example that you just gave, by them simply saying that, opened the portal for us. Like that created massive change, and how powerful that is simply by them naming it,
Yeah. Yes.
to the point where I'm like literally feeling that joy bubble up inside of me right now, just remembering it.
Yes. Yes. And then the harnessing of that energy, like when you think
Hmm.
about that and you're feeling that, then
Yeah.
it becomes, whoa, how can I sustain that a little bit longer?
Yes.
How can I take that into my next work call or my next, whatever it is I'm doing?
Hmm. So you have trained with Joanna Lindenbaum, and I am currently, and you are still working with her, and I'm currently, doing the Sacred Depths certification. Shout out to Joanna.
Yes.
And just yesterday we were doing a class on the fear work. Anyway, and the idea of creating a body memory.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I love this idea of when we're doing work and there's different levels at which we do the work, the mind, the spirit, the body, the emotions. But the body is so powerful.
Yes,
And so how do we create a body memory of that we can then access in the future when
absolutely.
we want to
And,
call that feeling up again,
yeah, and naming it and
and naming it?
giving it a name, giving it an archetypal energy or whatever it is that you need to actually
Yeah.
become with that energy, like where you can name
Yes.
it and call it out and say, hey, you can invite it in when you want to invite it in.
Hmm.
You have access to it. You're capable of inviting it in, and it's not
Yep.
bypassing anything else that needs to be felt. It's just it's being able to sit with the limiting beliefs and the old stories, but also manage and tap into another energy.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
the old stories and the limiting beliefs, we can work on them, and they absolutely start to get less and less,
Hmm.
but they're never completely gone,
No.
right?
So important to note that, actually.
Yeah. Because we
Hmm.
think, oh, I worked on that. That shouldn't be coming up again.
Hmm.
That's one I hear a lot and one I've
I
said
hear it.
myself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's become a really important part of my practice with myself, but also with my clients, right? That to do the work around when we might have a breakthrough, but then the question of like, okay, when this feeling comes up again, what are some tools you can apply? Because
Yes.
in other words, subtext, it's going to come up again, even though you just had this massive breakthrough and even probably created a shift. You know, we're not done yet.
Which is that power, yes, of remembering and naming it. Yeah. And I love that.
Yeah.
So for you personally, or for your clients, whichever, both,
Hmm.
what do you feel like is the biggest block you see
Hmm.
to being able to access that joy?
Hmm. Yeah.
What's
Okay. So I love this question. And another thing I said before we started the recording, everybody, is just that the questions, Laura sent me some questions that I knew she was going to ask, and I've been sitting with them. And I said, part of the interesting part of this dialogue is like, I really am not sure of all the answers, but the conversation feels really important. So one of the thoughts, maybe the first one that came up for me around what blocks joy, is compare and despair.
yeah,
That just,
totally.
so when I'm comparing and despairing, so how I think of it is I've taken my empowerment, which lives within me. So think of it as energy, your soul, your spirit, energy, internal, whatever words you want to use. And when I'm comparing and despairing, let's say I'm scrolling on social media and I see somebody that's doing something and she's doing what I want to do, but she's doing it so much better, whatever my thoughts are, right? And I'll never blah, blah, blah. And oh, why didn't I think of that? I don't even know.
Oh, yeah.
Her house is clean. I don't know. Whatever. Um,
Yes.
so in that moment, what I've done is I've taken all my empowerment, all my inner energy, all my inner power, and I have placed it in this person's hands. They don't realize that I've done that, of course, but I have done that. So I'm empty. I have nothing. I have no power. What I say, I have externalized my power, which means I have no power. It's in the hands of others. And then I am totally robbing myself of my joy. Because there's nothing here for me to even anchor into.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It's almost
so
in yourself or what makes you
mhm,
powerful.
mhm.
And now it's somewhere else. It's over here and you're
It's
focused.
over there. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. And now the dog walker's here. See, there's just movement
Oh,
happening
yeah.
in my
Yes.
vastly imperfect life. Okay. um, there. Okay. Door's
Well,
closed.
and that's a good point. There's not really joy in perfection because perfection is a myth, which we know, which we've learned, and which we
Hmm.
work with on our clients. But
Yep.
yeah, that's another block.
No, there's no joy in perfection. There's only torture.
Yes.
Like the torture of like, this isn't perfect. And I will whatever spiral down into that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So going outside of yourself and looking out
Hmm.
there at everybody else, what
Yes.
they're doing, and then
Yes.
losing a sense of groundedness. You said anchoredness, but also
Yes.
any sense of wow, me. Like I'm losing sense of me,
That is right. Yeah.
and it doesn't feel. It feels. Then you're like you're untethered, but then it also feels really
Hmm.
awful. Like you are
Feels so awful.
the way we, and then the dialogue that happens, the judgment.
Yeah, and it's so easy to just quickly spiral down, and I'm sure that anybody watching this has experienced that. I mean, we can all relate to that. It's actually an example of like, well, I've learned this time and time again, and I will continue to learn it because I will have moments in my life when I compare and despair. I know that now. I can get out of it pretty quickly now because I'm more practiced at it and because I have more tools. And but
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that even if I'm in that for 5 minutes, it's not incredibly painful. It's incredibly painful. And yeah, robs me of my joy, robs me of my inner power, a sense of contentment, a sense of self, actually, which I need to continue forward with my purpose.
exactly.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
on the flip side of that, then would your kind of the tool or the thing that you think of most
mhm,
as creating a pathway back to being able to experience joy,
mm,
would
mm,
that be really releasing that piece? What would it be?
mm.
Is there
I
another
think,
tool that you really
mhm.
think of when you think of
Yeah, I love that question so much because, right, we want to develop the tools to get back to our joy. So one of the things I would say is a body memory. And I'm really accessing that right now in this call. And it's the access point has been that conversation about Redbird. So I was feeling joyful before too, just, but like I'm really recognizing that there's a portal there, there's an access point there that I'm just really enjoying physically, internally in this moment. So body memory would be a way. And if we're in the compare and despair, which again, our energy is totally out of us, it's in the hands of others. Yeah, the ritual is to sit and really call your energy back. For me, because I am very energetic in my work and I'm extremely visual. So this will not work for people that aren't that, right? But if that relates to anybody watching, if they can relate to that, I like sit down, of course, drop into my breath and I just visualize literally like the disconnecting of energy and calling it back. And sometimes I'll just do it really slowly,
mm,
um, piece by piece. And sometimes I'll just look at like, where's my energy connected in the future, calling that back. Where's my energy connected in the past, call that back. Where is my energy disconnected in the present? Like, is my energy with the dirty dishes in the sink? Call that back. So just calling myself back to myself.
oh,
And yeah, yeah.
that
Thank
is
you.
so beautiful and powerful. And as you're even saying it, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, because I know you're, yeah.
And you're
I
talking,
see.
yeah. And I think
I
it
see it too.
having to, first of all, remember you can do that. Second of all,
Mhm.
when you feel the activation, when you're
Mhm.
activated to
Mhm.
compare and despair, and you feel the
Mhm.
ickiness of that activation, remembering the body memory of, wait a second, Okay,
Mm-hmm.
here's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And to get out of that, okay, I'm going to feel that because that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if I want to not stay here, I can remember, I can call back something else
Yeah.
and pull from that body memory, like you said, just like at the coffee shop, and pull from that.
Yeah.
But it takes you having to really kind of like be willing to get still,
It is.
right? And go inward and just do that.
Getting still, getting present, getting mindful, all of those words. The other piece I want to actually back up. I think another thing that I do when I'm robbing myself of my joy, because it's totally me doing it to me, um, is I can reach out to a friend via
Yes.
text, just say, I'm like comparing and despairing. I'm feeling like super shitty. I'm whatever. And, I don't need any coaching in that moment, right? I don't need anything. I just need a friend to go, girl, I hear you. And I'm here to remind you that you're you're a superhero in this world, right? Or whatever, like you're amazing and you're whatever. And then it's like, so then I've been able to express the emotion too and be witnessed in it. That's actually incredibly powerful as well.
Incredibly powerful. I always tell my clients, just being witnessed
Yes.
is probably, yeah, one of the most healing, most powerful things,
Yeah.
ways in which we can start the healing, even heal something, even just a wound
Mm-hmm.
we've never let anyone see, or
Mm-hmm.
calling a friend, or when I call you and I'm like, oh, I feel horrible. I feel like I'm dropping all the balls,
Mm-hmm.
and you just even listening, even if you weren't to say anything,
Yeah.
there's something about getting it out of the dark,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
right? And having it here, out here, and seen and heard, and yeah,
Shame lives in the dark.
yeah.
Shame lives in the dark. And when we bring it out to the light, it has a hard time surviving for
It
sure.
it slowly dies a horrible death.
Yes, thank goodness. Shame. And something I always say, and I know I say this, is like the moment a woman feels shame is the moment she's disconnected from her power.
Uh,
And I also see shame when we're in shame, it's because we have given our power to other people because we're feeling like we've done wrong according to what other people expect of us, whether it's people that we know, whether it's people that we don't know, whether it's to the culture, whether, it's like whatever ideas we have in our head. So it's massively disempowering and joy robbing.
okay, that was the moment that made me just about cry just now when you said that. Every conversation I've had has moved me, and that was the moment when you said that just now about shame. Because it made me think the times and how early that happens for so many of us. How
Yeah.
early we've actually given that power up, as early as age 5, 6, 7, whatever it
Yep.
is. Um,
Yep.
and that if we do get to this place, hopefully, where we get to awaken and choose
Mhm.
something else. I do believe we all get to choose that, but some of us maybe have that opportunity a little more easier than others.
Yeah.
But when we do get it, it's just, it's almost a grieving of how all the years you've gone through that, and you've experienced it all the way back to that age. And it's almost about learning to also reparent that little one,
That's right.
to
Yeah.
really, there's that whole process of reparenting and learning to love her, give
Mhm.
her what she needed.
Mhm. Mhm. Stop excluding her, bring her in, love her, reparent her. Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, absolutely. And when you said, just again, thank you, Laura, for all your words and everything you are and what you bring. Yeah, what you said about that moment in shame and how early some of us experience that. I just went through memory, and then I especially the first memory that came to mind was being shamed for my body,
Yeah,
which is such an entry point of shame for so much of us, so
so
many
much,
of us.
so
I,
much.
and I've talked about this before. I've sent newsletters, I've posted, I've talked about this. It's just that moment for me when I was 8, so maybe a little older than some others, but I have other moments that shamed me, but like the body shame. So,
Yeah.
mm,
Yes. And for me, I think it was seeing, for me personally, seeing my sister experience shame around her body,
mm,
that I witnessed even the shame,
Yeah.
I then learned maybe I should be ashamed too. I, so we can experience it directly or
Yes.
indirectly,
Yes.
right?
So powerful.
I
Yeah.
do.
Like witnessing trauma happening is actually traumatic as well.
And can continue on as trauma in now your body just from
Mhm.
having witnessed, just by forming a belief about your own body through seeing that happen. And it just
Yeah.
continues, and we keep passing it down. So,
Yeah.
and I think you do a lot of work around the patriarchy and how we internalize that. And
Yeah.
the body for women is often where we we're told so many things about our bodies, like what's wrong with it or how it should be,
That's right.
right? And then we we automatically, just in response to so many things,
Hmm.
start there to fix
That
everything.
is right. So maybe the biggest messaging, I don't know if this is true. One of the biggest messaging of the patriarchy towards women is, okay, women out there, your value and how you are seen as valuable is if you are thin, you are pretty, not too pretty though. You are white, you are young. So that's where your value is.
Hmm.
So go, ready, set, go,
Yeah,
right? And it's like, we live in a culture, I'm stating what everybody knows, like even models who are already genetic anomalies, right? And I mean that in the best way. They're extraordinarily beautiful, like they're extraordinary in terms of our own beauty standards, et cetera, right? There's layers here. They're photoshopped. So if
mhm,
somebody who's already considered extraordinary
yeah,
isn't okay as they are, how can any of us be okay? We cannot. And I mean, by design, it's 100% by design.
yeah, yeah.
So
And
it's
if we're busy always trying to fix our bodies,
mhm,
we are busy not being powerful in the world.
1 million percent.
And
It's chasing a tail while all this other stuff is going on out here where we could have impact and create change
absolutely,
and
100%.
also feel fulfilled and feel good about ourselves and feel worthy and all of that. Because when we're chasing the tail of like youth and beauty um and again, like I'm already a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes and whatever, privilege that hands me. If I was a woman of color, forget it. Like you're just so it I it's such a what's the word? It's such a racket. That's kind of the word. It's just such a racket.
Yeah,
And we're all losing, obviously. I mean, and our world is losing because we're not able to bring our purpose to the world. So,
absolutely. And I think you and I both have been called to, ugh, flush that out
mhm,
and
definitely.
help, help. I don't even know. I want to say kill it, but I mean, just that, I mean, and just the body. I remember feeling almost like, for me, it was like almost like a kind of a revolutionary act
Mhm,
to finally
mhm,
say to myself, you know what? I am done wasting my life and my energy
mhm.
and my time trying to be perfect. Right?
It
And that
is a revolutionary act. I believe that it is.
it absolutely is. I was done. I was like, you know what? I don't know where I'm going from here or how to do this life differently, but I
Mhm.
will no longer give you my power and my time.
And I just want to ask you, how many times do you need to recommit to that revolutionary act? Or are you pretty solid in it? Because I feel like sometimes it's a daily thing for me.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think because that was 10 years ago that moment happened for me.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have been through so many. It was not like, oh, I made that decision and it was a linear process from there, right?
Right.
It never
Right.
happens
Yeah.
that way. Oh, it was like this and like that. I mean, it was just all over the place with the
Yeah.
healing and the learning and the saying yes
Yeah.
again and again and again. Yes. So
Yeah.
yes, today in
Yeah.
this moment, I'm probably the strongest I've ever been, the most embodied I've ever been
Mm,
in
mm,
who I
mm,
am,
mm.
where I don't believe for a second my worth and value is in my body, like what I
Oh,
look from the outside.
so good.
Doesn't mean that I have moments where I'm like, I want to look good. I don't, I want to
Yeah.
be adorn my body with what makes me feel
Yes.
joyful,
Yes.
you know?
So can we talk about that for a second? Because this is one of my favorite conversations. So it's like, if we're going to give the finger to patriarchal beauty standards and just own ourselves and be embodied, which is such a key word and a key concept, women are so disembodied. We tend to live up in our head and disconnect from our body because, of course, we just can't, it's so painful to live in our body because our bodies are just wrong and our bodies are raped and our body, like there's just stuff out there, right? So the power of getting embodied, which is scary and doesn't feel safe for so many women, is so important. But the oh my gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. What did you just say? Help me.
The work of the embodied, just being embodied and not thinking my value was
Yes.
just in this part of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I do not remember what I was going to say.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
okay. Because
Shoot.
it'll come to you.
Wow.
It'll come to you. But I think there are moments when I'm like, you know what? I would like to feel stronger. I would like to feel, yeah, what was it?
Beauty. Is it okay for us to want to be beautiful?
Yes.
If we're like creating, the radical act of loving ourselves as we are.
Yes.
And I think about this a lot. And there's a couple thoughts I have currently in my thought process is like, because we're all in the water and we're all wet, right? There's no way for us to 100% totally, at least that I figured out yet, disengage from patriarchal messaging. Like it's a process. And we have things that we can't see that we're buying into. But so the beauty question is like, I feel like, okay, where is it coming from? So if it's coming from like, I want to feel beautiful, kind of for me, because it feels good to feel beautiful. And I want to use the word feeling versus looking. I
Yeah.
want to feel beautiful versus I want to look beautiful. It's different. Looking beautiful is externalizing, right? So because you're putting yourself through the gaze of others. I want to feel beautiful, like, yeah. And then adorning oneself, to me, and we've talked about this, and I love the word of adorning, and I want to adorn myself. It feels like an act of love. And I think that there's this difference here. I want women to focus on feeling beautiful. What does it take to feel beautiful? Like one of the things that it takes for me is to exercise, because that helps me get embodied.
Yeah.
It's not about shrinking my body, right? Like I've definitely grown past that, thank goodness. But the strength. So I think that that's something I hear a lot of women just like kind of sinking into, like, I want to feel strong. It does. It feels good to feel strong. So whatever it is and everybody's different and we need to find our way. But yeah, I think it is okay to want to feel beautiful and to adorn ourselves. And I always have this image of like, if we were living in times of goddess worship, um, before there was anything else, right? Then I always think, oh, I'm like, if I'm going to I don't want to really upset anybody that doesn't, but there was a time in our history that there was no Christianity, Islam, Judaism. There was the goddess worship. And I always think, if I was like going to the temple to worship the goddess, where it was just going to be me and a bunch of other women, like I would adorn myself. I would feel beautiful going there in sort of honoring women and the woman and the female form. And that feels good to me.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. And the adorning from a different place. So like you said,
mm-hmm,
feeling like, to me, the way I'm defining beauty now
mm-hmm,
is from an internal place, is from when I think of beauty now, because I see beauty in nature every day. That's where I
yes.
find it. And I think, what is it about that flower? What is it about that blade of grass? What is it about that tree that completely delights all of my senses? And so for me, it's like, if I want to feel alive and joyful and beautiful, then how do I want to flow in this outfit? Or how do I want to adorn myself?
Oh,
Right. So it's more to me of
ooh, I love that so much, Laura.
like my senses are brought to life.
Mm-hmm,
And it's not
mm-hmm.
like how can I be perfect? Because I used to live in that world. Like, how can I be the
Mhm.
tiniest version of me?
Mm.
That was my thought process. And that wasn't beauty, but
No.
I had to redefine it. And I
Yeah.
think it really does take for each woman listening and each of us in this, like, what is beautiful to you?
Mhm.
And really asking yourself that question, like, what do you
Right.
find beautiful in the world? Not just in bodies,
Right.
but in everything.
And in order to get the true answer, it's probably going to take some time because we are so conditioned to define beauty in a very specific way. And so to undo those layers and shed those layers and get to the core of what we feel is beautiful,
Yeah, it's a process.
it's a process. It's a learning process. And it's a wonderful process, I think.
Well, and again, to that point of calling a friend and saying, I
Yeah.
really think that the more you surround yourself with women who get that, who are seeking
Yes.
that, who understand that,
Yes.
and putting
Yes.
yourself or with those people and talking about it, and even the social media that you consume and the people you
Yes.
follow, like
Mhm.
that will
Mm.
help you stay the course.
Oh my gosh, that's such a key point. Talk about what can disrupt joy. The news we immerse ourselves in, the social media people we follow and see. I mean, edit that stuff. I can't say it strongly enough. I have like unfollowed, blocked. I mean, it's just as soon as I gave myself permission to be like, no,
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
so much better. And even when I do go onto Facebook, um, so Facebook specifically, right? Because there's like your main feed, but then I belong to some groups and I run a group. I go on, I don't ever go to I hardly ever, I shouldn't say never, hardly ever go to my main feed. So I'm sorry to all my friends whose stuff I miss. But like mostly I find it a time suck actually,
mhm,
and potentially really anxiety producing.
yep,
Um, and so I just go to the groups of people that I'm with that were like they're supporting each other and looking at things from a like-minded spirit. And it isn't that I don't expose myself to other opinions. I do. It's just like, do I need to dip myself into a pool of that every day? I definitely don't. That is exhausting and anxiety producing for me.
so true, so true. And we have to figure out, like, is this even platform right for me? Do I enjoy being on Facebook?
100%. Yeah.
If I don't, then don't go there. Like, give yourself the
Yes.
permission.
Yeah.
Go
I
to,
give you permission.
yeah.
And Laura does too.
Yeah,
Here's your permission slip. Just say no. Yeah.
yeah, find those people um, that feed what you want to grow. That
Yeah.
really, though, they're those people. And
But
yeah,
feed what you want to grow. I just love that so much.
yeah.
Thank
Okay, so I
you.
have a couple more questions for you.
Okay. I know.
Um,
We're I'll try and not
if
be
there's
long-winded.
So we kind of went into what becomes possible when you are in your joy. We
Mhm.
did really touch on that because I think what
Mm.
we've kind of discovered is, I mean, so much, like a redefinition of
Mhm.
beauty, of freedom. Um,
Yeah.
we just went through so much of what becomes
Presence.
possible.
Mhm.
Presence, being connected and embodied in your
Yeah.
power, not someone else's.
Yeah.
Um, so I
Mm.
just loved this conversation so much.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure people know where to find you. So, will you share what you're up to in the world, what you have going on, and just
Yeah.
where they can
Love
connect?
to. Thank you. Yeah. So where you can find me is on Facebook. I have a Facebook group called the Feminist Business Model. So there you go. It's such an incredibly supportive, amazing, wonderful group. I treasure this group of women. On Instagram, I'm at Elijah Shannon Selby.
Okay.
And on the web, my business is at thefemininerising.world.
Yeah.
So which is, well, I don't love my website currently, but I'm working on a new one. But there you go. I'm there. You can find me. I'm sure you will.
Well, you're sharing your voice in powerful ways, and you
Thank
are a
you.
powerful, nurturing, loving leader, which I think is
Thank
needed in
you.
this world. Um, and
I
I'm
think redefining leadership is such an important part of what so many of us are doing right now on the planet. Yeah. Thank
just,
you.
yes. And
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate to call you a friend. And
I feel the same.
so happy you were here today. And then the last thing is, if you were to send everyone off listening with a wish or prayer or something that you would like to just depart with,
Mm, mm,
what would that be?
mm. I mean, I really do pray, wish, visualize for all women to get empowered, meaning disconnect from the externalized energy as I described it, bring your power back. But I've also been thinking about what that definition of empowered is, because I think it's a word we use a lot. And here's where I am with that, which is to empowered means knowing, truly knowing who we are, and then living our life according to that unapologetically.
Mm.
And that is my wish, because not only do I know every woman will have a better life as a result, but the people around her will have better lives. And that very literally, I do not mean this in any metaphorical sense, the world will become a better place, that the world will change. I literally just gave myself the chills.
Yes.
So that is my wish.
When you said unapologetically, I
Mhm.
literally, I didn't do this, but in my side, I was like this.
Yes.
Like that's the energy of just
Yeah.
unapologetically.
Mhm.
And the openness of that and the energy that flows out of that and goes into
Mm.
everything else, and just the possibility of that.
What we discover when we find out the truth of who we are, which by the way takes some sifting through a lot of BS, right?
Yeah.
It's a process. And I think probably a lifetime process, to be honest with you. But when we get there, I mean, it does feel like this. It feels revolutionary. It feels like, I don't know, the angels spreading their wings and like the light everywhere and like a choir singing. I mean, it really,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's amazing.
Well, thank you for sharing your heart today, your heart and your fire and your love and your light. And
Mm,
you're powerful. And I'm just so honored and just adore you. And I'm so thankful for you.
feels the same. I love you. You are such a gift in my life.
Aw.
Thank you.
Mm.
And to everybody else's lives, thank you for hosting this amazing conversation. You are an inspiration to me.
Thank you, sweetie. Mwah. I love you.